Way! Welcome and welcome back. Welcome to me, Norman the Classic 350, and God's own county of Yorkshire, England, United Kingdom. Glorious today. Now, before I go any further, an apology is due your way, good viewer. The last two videos have been below par, very much below par. Now, as you may or may not know, of course, I've been plagued with all sorts of problems relating to cameras and audio and this and that. Oh, and finding a compromise that works for the time being until I'm in a position to basically replace everything that I use on the bike, cameras and microphones and yada yada. So I've been trying to find the perfect compromise. So today we will see whether or not I have actually managed to achieve that. Now, yeah, so the apology is because the last two videos were pretty pants. The one on the Saturday was poor video, poor visuals, because I had the helmet cam set up, but the ridiculously big mic adapter for the GoPro Heroes dropped down and came into the field of view, and I had to crop that video, and in my rush to crop out all of that malarkey, I forgot to level the horizon, so it looked completely skewed. And I know my good friend Andy, who's a pilot, that their shifting horizon played havoc with his pilot senses. Hey, sorry old lad. He told me he was leaning to and fro, side to side in his chair, trying to watch it, trying to correct the horizon. So sorry everybody about that. And then on Sunday's video, apart from I completely lost my mojo, my heart wasn't in it, I did actually cut that video short. I was going to have a good full day's ride out, and before I even got halfway through I just thought, mate, the mojo's not just in it. You get days like that, don't you? You just get days where you think, oh Christ, I can't be bothered, I'm not, you know, it's not happening for me. So there were that, and of course the sound was shocking because the microphone had slipped down in this ear helmet right down onto the just where the chin valance is, and so it picked up all the wind, and round these parts up here at this elevation, you know, it's windy enough without having that scenario. And I did have a dead cat on, but it obviously couldn't cope with that amount of wind. So I do apologise. Both of those videos were classic examples of putting something out which didn't really pass muster, didn't really pass quality control, but I put it out because I've always said to you, you'll get a video on a Thursday and a video on a Sunday, and yeah, so lesson learned. Sorry about that. Hope I'm going to say, hope you didn't unsubscribe on back of that, but if you did, you'll not be seeing this, will you? Hey! Yeah, beautiful day to be out on Norman the Classic at 350, and love this bike. It's just effortless. I don't have to think about anything when I jump on this bike. When I've got Norman between my legs out here in the Yorkshire Dales, oh, there I go again. Oh, Mrs. Steady on. Oh, Mrs. Titty not. All's right with the world, even when all isn't necessarily always right with the world. But it's such an effortless endeavour riding a beautiful little bike like this and not having to prove a point. You get on a Royal Enfield Classic 350 and you don't have to prove anything to anybody. And by and large, when other motorists, you know, see a classic bike like this, that they often confuse with the real thing from the 1950s or 60s. They'll cut you a load of slack. I've found that. So there's that to it as well. Listen to that old single cylinder thumping away there. Alright, so the compromise setup that I've arrived at for the cameras now, and we'll see if it works. You may be aware, I'm sure you're well aware if you've seen previous episodes, what the backstory is regarding these GoPros. But it appears that many of the problems I was having with both the cameras routinely stopping, and if you're using GoPros and you're having these issues, this will be of interest to you. What actually happened is that, as far as I recall, when I got the new computer, for whatever reason, probably because it was easier than on the old computer, when I transferred the files from the camera's SD card onto the hard drives that I have plugged into the computer, I would then just delete everything off the card using the computer, put the card back in the camera and leave it at that, knowing that the card were empty and ready to go on both cameras. Don't work that way, because what I was doing before then was I was formatting the cards in camera, because that deletes all the content. So I'd subtly and unknowingly sort of changed my working practices, and lo and behold, suddenly I start having all these problems. And of course, when I get advice from people like Jonathan off Wildlife Motors saying format cards, formatting computer, formatting camera as well, suddenly occurred to me, bloody hell, I haven't been formatting the cards. So I'm sure that is part of the problem. That said, I did all the formatted in the computer and in the camera, the cards, manually ejected them from the computer before taking the card out, all of that good practice, if you will. But I still had problems with the Hero 10. Now the Hero 12, which I was using as the helmet camera, the forward facing camera, that was behaving fine. That started behaving itself again. Enduro battery in, hour and a quarter of 4K video footage, no problem. But the Hero 10, which I had mounted on the bike, that was never happy, and I'm sure that were a vibration issue. I'm sure that was a vibration issue, because it was most pronounced on the Moto Guzzi and less pronounced on the CF Moto. It'd knock off straight away on the Moto Guzzi as soon as I set off. On the CF Moto it'd give me 5-10 minutes. So what I've done is a couple of things. I've swapped around the Hero 10 and the Hero 12. So the Hero 10 now I have as the forward facing camera, and it's not on the helmet anymore. It's back on this here Telesin neck mount. So I've gone back to the Telesin neck mount because I'm guessing there's less vibrations through me than there is through the helmet, if that makes any sense. And the Hero 10, so the Hero 10 is the body camera, if you like, forward facing, and the Hero 12 is mounted to the bike. And I notice it's still recording fine as a Hero 12, so the only surmise I can make is my GoPro Hero 10 is more susceptible to vibrations than the Hero 12, because they're both now working fine for the moment. So that's that. So yeah, my apologies for them two suboptimal videos. I hate uploading things that are as good as I can possibly make them, and I think through a combination of frustration and lack of time, I made that schoolboy error. Right, so nice week of weather ahead apparently, but it's been pretty pants lately. So I've been watching a fair bit of YouTube. I notice a lot of people that watch my channel, I see them commenting on other channels, so there's obviously a degree of shared interest across the different platforms. The ones I enjoy, certainly at the moment, I mean the big ones, I've sort of had my fill of them, to be fair. Any of the channels that go abroad and do the you know, the promotional stuff on the new bikes, I tend to give them a miss now. They're all a bit samey. And you know the ones I mean, they're pretty much the really big channels, 100,000 plus. But I like to watch the more modest channels and some of the smaller channels, and I've mentioned some of them before. What I've started watching recently I really do enjoy, and it's called something like Japanese Superbikes Special, or Japanese Superbike Surgery. The fella called Jim, and man, what an amazing motorcycle mechanic he has, and what gear he's got. He's got a van full of pretty space age motorcycle diagnostic equipment and what have you, so he obviously goes out and sorts bikes out in the field, and he's obviously, I think he's got his home based as well, but by heck, that is proper space age stuff that he does. He really knows his onions, that fella, and it's really interesting to see him take on bikes that clearly other mechanics or wannabe mechanics have promised they'll fix, and suddenly found themselves hopefully out of the depth. And he comes along and through a very, very methodical process, using all his diagnostics, oscilloscopes and all of this, gets them fettled. And so I find that very, very interesting. It's almost like a murder mystery, a whodunit. It's like a whodunit drama. It's that compelling. What's wrong with this bike? You know, going through the various stages, eliminating all the possibilities. And a bit like what Sherlock Holmes says, eliminate the impossible, then whatever remains, however improbable, is going to be the truth. And yeah, So great to watch that. Japanese superbike surgery. You'll find it. Yeah, excellent. And but I don't. I mean, I like obviously I like classic rides. I like watching wildlife moto. I do still watch Bruce, Teapot 1. In fact, I'm a Patreon of yours, Bruce. I do like Bruce, not just because he's an ex-colleague, and also an ex-colleague that certain elements of the service tried to shaft, as they did me for a period during my police service. So I've got a lot of empathy with Bruce, but I also think, well, I mean, obviously he rode around the world, absolute massive respect to him for that, but I just think he's probably the most sincere, down-to-earth, engaging YouTube channel out there. Teapot 1. And his podcasts as well. I love listening to his podcasts, where he will actually sit down and chat for 2 or 3 hours on the podcast with some of the lesser known channels. Does it with the big ones as well, you know, the Lamb Chops and the TMFs. Richie Vida. But he does sit down with the smaller channels as well, and some very interesting people from the world of motorcycling. So yeah, I do like Bruce's channel, but by and large I tend to watch the small to medium ones, except that is when it comes to non-motorcycle orientated channels. And I really enjoy some of the big American podcasts that get some really, really interesting, often controversial characters on. And it's not like back in the days of Parkinson or Wogan, where if you're lucky you get 20 minutes with a guest. You know, I know that one that tried to emulate Parkinson and Wogan and all of them, that just was so mediocre he wasn't up to it. Jonathan Ross, waste of space. Tried to walk in the footsteps of the great and fell over from day one as far as I'm concerned. But any road up, the day of the sort of chat show on British television sort of gone, but the day of the podcast is here. And some of the big American ones, and I'm thinking of Lex Fridman, Chris Williams, or is it Williamson? Chris Williamson. What else? Joe Rogan, definitely. Love Joe Rogan. I mean, if ever a fella's outward appearance belied his knowledge and intelligence and incisiveness, it were Joe, because he is one bloody clever fella. You've only to listen to him for a few minutes to realise. So yeah, I love watching Joe Rogan, Lex Fridman, Chris Williamson, there are others, but the beauty of those sort of three in particular, they get some really big names from the world of science, from the world of politics, from the world of business, from the military world on some occasions. Really interesting when instead of getting your statutory 20 minutes on a chat show, you're getting 2, 3, 4 hours sometimes. Watching this morning on Chris Williamson's podcast, and he's English, is Chris, lives in the States now, but he is an Englishman, and chatting to a fella called Eric Weinstein, who's physicist and mathematician really, but has takes on all other philosophical aspects of life. What a fascinating fella to listen to. And they were talking about everything from folk that slag you off on YouTube. I can sympathise with that. They were talking about that, but they explained scientifically why people feel the need to go onto YouTube channels, big or small, and start slating the content maker. Hey! And it's not to do with the content maker or the content, it's to do with basically their own inadequacies and finding ways of giving expression to their innermost, shall we say, shortcomings. But it was a lot more complicated than that, but it was very interesting. Then they got on a bit of physics and mathematics, and I did sciences at school, did A-level physics and chemistry, biology, but they were way off. But fascinating, they were talking about things called tesseracts. Tesseract, which if I understand rightly, a four-dimensional object in three-dimensional space. And it features in one of my favourite films of all time, Interstellar. That is one brilliant film, Interstellar. It operates on so many levels, does Interstellar. You know, I've watched it 6 or 7 times and I'm still sure I haven't got to the absolute epicentre of its truth. Brilliant film. So there's a tesseract features in that. And there are things called Klein jugs. I don't know if you've ever seen them Klein jugs. They're like impossible objects, but Ulrich Weinstein was saying they're actually a four-dimensional object in three-dimensional space. So you've just got to think about it in the right way. And it always reminds me of those prints by Moritz Escher, of which I've got quite a few, that are based on a thing called a tribar, another impossible object that can't exist in our three-dimensional universe. It was actually discovered, stroke invented by Roger Penrose, a contemporary of Stephen Hawking. But if you Google Tesseract and look at some of the moving images of Tesseracts, hey, they'll screw with your mind, because they're screwed with my mind completely. But yeah, four-dimensional objects in three-dimensional space. Hey, the stuff I watch, the stuff I watch. Right, that's enough waffling for today. It was just basically an opportunity to come out and try a different camera and audio setup. See if I can get back to where I was in terms of the quality of the video footage and the quality of the audio. So apologies, the subject matter wasn't more engaging, other than the beautiful scenery, of course. But sometimes it's just good to come out, leave the big bad world behind and talk nonsense. So, if you have indeed watched and listened to this nonsense this far, you have my eternal thanks and gratitude, and all I ask by way of return is that you subscribe to the channel. And I'll give you a little snippet of what's coming up. I've just received from those wonderful people at Trip Machine 2 fabulous leather saddlebags, and show you a little picture here. Trip Machine, top quality leather gear, and I'll be reviewing that. I don't know whether I'll be attaching it to Norman here, probably, and then eventually to the Moto Guzzi, which is why I ordered or asked for the cherry red option rather than the black, tan or chocolate versions, because I think that'll set that Moto Guzzi off nicely. But yeah, proper retro vintage style leather saddlebags from Trip Machine, and I'll be reviewing them in due course. Aye, so until that until that video goes out, and there'll probably be one before that, I suspect. Until then, ride safe, be kind, and of course, I'll civvy.